Officer Tom Bradley gripped his steering wheel tighter as he watched the busy street from his patrol car. The 28-year-old policeman had been having the worst week of his career. Just yesterday, his boss, Sergeant Williams, had called him into the office for the second time this month. "Tom, you need to watch your attitude with the public," Williams had said, shaking his head. "I'm getting too many complaints about you being rude to people. This is your final warning, Tom." No, he was in trouble, but he couldn't help feeling angry all the time. His girlfriend had left him 3 months ago, saying he had become too negative. His rent had gone up, and he was struggling to pay his bills. Everything seemed to be going wrong. And he took his frustration out on everyone round him as he sat in his car that cold afternoon in Manchester. Tom spotted an old blue car driving slowly down the street. The back taillight was completely broken, with red plastic scattered on the road behind it. Tom sighed and turned on his flashing lights. The old car pulled over immediately. Tom watched as the driver's door opened slowly. An elderly black woman stepped out carefully, using a wooden walking stick to help her balance. She was wearing a neat coat and had silver hair pulled back in a bun, despite her age. She stood straight and looked directly at Tom as he approached. "Good afternoon, officer," she said in a soft, polite voice. "I'm Dorothy Walker. How can I help you today?" Tom felt his jaw muscles tighten. Something about her calm, respectful manner made him feel even more irritated. Maybe it was because she seemed so peaceful, while he felt so angry inside. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Tom asked, his voice coming out harsher than he intended. Dorothy nodded gently. "I believe it might be my taillight, officer. I've been saving up money to get it fixed. It's been broken for about 2 weeks now." "That's not an excuse," Tom snapped, already pulling out his citation book. "You can't drive round with broken lights. It's dangerous. I need to see your license and registration right now." Dorothy moved slowly to her car, opening the glove compartment with shaking hands. Tom noticed that her fingers trembled as she searched through the papers. She was probably in her 70s, maybe older. Any normal person would have felt sorry for her. But Tom just felt more annoyed that she was taking so long. "Here you are, officer," Dorothy said, handing him the documents. Tom looked at her license and registration papers, his frown deepened as he examined them. "Mrs. Walker, this registration expired 3 months ago, and your inspection sticker is overdue too." Dorothy's face fell, and she looked genuinely upset. "Oh dear, officer, I've been struggling since my husband passed away last year. I'm trying to keep up with everything, but sometimes I forget things. It's been so hard managing everything alone, and my memory isn't what it used to be." "No excuses," Tom interrupted coldly. "The law is the law. I don't care about your personal problems. I'm writing you citations for all 3 violations." Tom began writing ticket after ticket, one for each problem he had found. Dorothy stood quietly beside her car, shivering in the cold wind. She didn't argue or complain. She just waited patiently, watching the traffic go by. When Tom finished writing, he had a stack of 3 tickets in his hand. He calculated the total fines in his head and felt a small satisfaction at the large amount. "That's £400 total," Tom said without any emotion in his voice. "You have 30 days to pay these fines or appear in court. If you don't pay, they'll suspend your license." Dorothy took the tickets with shaking hands and looked at the total amount. Tom saw her eyes widen slightly, but she didn't complain. She just nodded slowly and folded the papers carefully. "Thank you, officer," she said quietly. "I understand you're just doing your job." She paused for a moment, Looking directly into Tom's eyes, there was no anger there, no hatred, just a deep sadness that made Tom feel uncomfortable. "I hope you find peace in your heart, young man," Dorothy said softly. "Life is too short to carry so much anger round. It will only hurt you." In the end, Tom watched as Dorothy got back into her old car and drove away slowly, being extra careful at every turn. Her words echoed in his mind as he stood there on the empty street. He told himself that he had done the right thing, that he was just, enforcing the law, but something about her gentle response and her kind words stayed with him for the rest of his shift, for some reason. Tom couldn't stop thinking about the sadness in her eyes. Tom Bradley woke up to the sound of his phone ringing, loudly on his bedside table. He groaned and looked at the clock. It was only 7 in the morning, and he wasn't supposed to start work until the afternoon shift. The phone kept ringing, so he finally answered it. "Tom, have you seen the news this morning?" It was his sister, Emma, and she sounded worried and upset. "What news?" Tom asked, rubbing his eyes. "Emma, it's 7 in the morning. I'm trying to sleep." "Tom, you need to turn on the television right now," Emma said, her voice getting more serious. "Channel 4. You're on the news." Tom's stomach suddenly felt sick. He grabbed the remote control and turned on his small television. The local morning news was on, and Tom's face went white when he saw what was on the screen. There was video footage of him from yesterday afternoon. Someone had recorded everything from their apartment window across the street. The video showed Tom being rude and cold to the elderly woman. It showed Dorothy Walker standing quietly in the wind while Tom wrote ticket after ticket. The video was clear enough to see her sad face and shaking hands. "Local police officer shows no mercy to struggling widow." The headline read across the bottom of the screen. The news reporter was talking about Dorothy Walker. Tom learned things about her that made his stomach feel even worse. Dorothy had been married to Robert Walker for 52 years. He had been the headmaster at the local primary school for 30 years before he retired, after Robert died last year. Dorothy had started volunteering at 3 different charities round Manchester. She helped serve meals to homeless people every Tuesday. She read stories to children at the library every Thursday. She organized clothing drives for families in need. The reporter showed clips of Dorothy's neighbors talking about her. "She's the sweetest lady you could ever meet," said one woman. "When my husband was sick, she brought us soup every day for 2 weeks." Another neighbor said, "She never asks for anything, but she's always helping others." This is just heartbreaking. Tom's phone started buzzing with text messages. Then it rang again. It was his mother. "Tom, I just saw the news," his mother said, and Tom could hear that she was crying. "How could you treat someone's grandmother like that? That poor woman looked so sad." "What's happened to you?" Tom couldn't answer. He felt ashamed and confused. His phone kept ringing all morning. Friends from school were calling. His cousin James left an angry message. Even his old girlfriend sent a text saying she was disappointed in him. By the time Tom got to work that afternoon, everyone at the police station was talking about the video. His fellow officers looked at him differently. Some shook their heads when they saw him. Others just looked away and pretended not to see him. Sergeant Williams called Tom into his office immediately. Williams looked tired and sad as he sat behind his desk. "Tom, I'm sorry, but I have to suspend you," Williams said quietly. "The video has been shared thousands of times online. The phone hasn't stopped ringing all day. People are demanding that we take action. But I was just doing my job," Tom said weakly. "I followed all the rules." "Tom, there's a difference between following rules and treating people with respect," Williams replied. You'll be suspended for 2 weeks while we investigate. I suggest you use this time to think about what kind of police officer you want to be. Meanwhile, across town, Dorothy Walker sat at her small kitchen table in her tiny flat. The 3 traffic tickets were spread out in front of her for £100. She looked at her bank statement and sighed. After paying rent, electricity, and groceries, she had less than £50 left each month. Dorothy had been saving money for 6 months to fix her car. The taillight would cost about £60 to repair. The registration and inspection would cost another £80. She had been so close to having enough money. But now she needed £400 just to pay the fines. But Dorothy wasn't angry at Officer Bradley. She had lived through too much hardship in her 73 years to waste energy on anger. When she was young, she had faced discrimination and difficult times. She had learned that anger only made pain worse. Instead of being bitter, Dorothy picked up her phone and called the food bank where she volunteered every Saturday morning. "Hello, this is Dorothy Walker. I'm calling to confirm that I'll be there Saturday morning as usual." "Mrs. Walker," said the volunteer coordinator, "everyone has seen the news. After what happened to you, no one would blame you if you wanted to take some time off." Dorothy smiled softly. "My dear, helping others is what helps me heal. When I'm serving soup to people who need it, I remember that we're all just human beings trying to do our best. I'll be there Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, just like always." Tom Bradley walked slowly through the front doors of the Manchester police station, feeling nervous and embarrassed. 2 weeks had passed since his suspension, and the disciplinary hearing yesterday had been one of the worst experiences of his life. He had to sit in a room while senior officers discussed his behavior and watched the video of him being rude to the elderly woman. Luckily, he still had his job, but just barely. The disciplinary board had given him a final warning, which meant that one more mistake would end his career forever. Tom knew he was lucky to still be wearing his uniform as he walked through the station. Tom noticed that things looked different. There were fresh flowers in the reception area, and the walls had been painted a warmer color. The usual tension that filled the building seemed lighter somehow. Even the receptionist smiled at him, which hadn't happened in weeks. Tom was putting his things in his locker when he heard the announcement over the intercom system. "All officers report to the main briefing room immediately. All officers to the main briefing room." Tom sighed and walked toward the briefing room with his colleagues. Everyone was talking quietly among themselves, wondering what the meeting was about. Some of the older officers looked excited, which was unusual. When Tom entered the briefing room, he saw that all the chairs were arranged in neat rows facing the front. Sergeant Williams was standing at the front of the room next to a woman in a police uniform. Tom couldn't see the woman's face because she was turned away from the group, looking at some papers on the table. "Settle down, everyone," Sergeant Williams called out. "I have some important news to share with you all." Tom found a seat near the back of the room. Still feeling uncomfortable about being the center of attention for the past 2 weeks, he slumped down in his chair and tried to make himself invisible. "As you all know, our former police chief retired last month," Williams continued. "The Manchester Police Authority has been searching for the right person to lead our department. During these challenging times, I'm proud to introduce our new chief of police, Dorothy Walker." The woman at the front turned round, and Tom felt like his heart had stopped beating. It was her. The same kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the same gentle face, the same silver hair. But now she was wearing a crisp police uniform with chief's insignia on the shoulders. Tom's mouth fell open, and he felt his face turn red with shock and embarrassment. He looked round the room to see if anyone else was as surprised as he was, but his colleagues were all clapping and smiling. Dorothy Walker stepped forward and looked out at the group of officers. When her eyes found Tom in the back row, she gave him a small, knowing smile. "Good morning, everyone," Dorothy said, her voice carrying natural authority that filled the room. "I know some of you might recognize me from recent news coverage." Several officers nodded, and Tom sank lower in his chair. "I want to be honest with you all," Dorothy continued. "I'm here because our community deserves better. The people of Manchester need to trust their police officers, and right now that trust has been damaged." Dorothy began walking round the room as she spoke, making eye contact with different officers. "I spent 30 years in law enforcement, starting as a young constable walking the streets of London. I worked my way up through the ranks, serving in different cities and learning from every experience. I retired 2 years ago as a detective chief inspector. But the Manchester Police Authority asked me to come out of retirement to help rebuild our relationship with the community." Tom learned that Dorothy had solved some of the most difficult cases in London. She had received awards for her work with community policing programs. She had trained hundreds of young officers during her career. "We're going to implement new training programs focused on respect and understanding," Dorothy explained. "We'll have monthly community meetings where residents can share their concerns directly with us. Every officer will participate in neighborhood programs to build relationships with the people we serve." She paused and looked directly at Tom again. "This won't be easy work, but I believe in each of you. I believe that people can change when they're given the chance to grow." When the meeting ended, Tom tried to leave quickly, hoping to avoid any conversation with his new boss. But as he reached the door, Dorothy's voice stopped him. "Officer Bradley, could I have a word with you?" Tom's heart pounded as he turned round slowly. Dorothy stood there calmly, not with anger or revenge in her eyes, but with something that looked almost like hope. "Yes, ma'am," Tom managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Dorothy walked closer to him and spoke quietly so the other officers couldn't hear. "I'll be expecting great things from you, Tom," she said gently. "I believe people can change when they're given the chance." Tom Bradley had never felt so uncomfortable in his entire life. For the past 3 months, Chief Dorothy Walker had been assigning him to work directly with her on community programs round Manchester. Every morning, she would tell him where they were going, and every morning, Tom felt like he wanted to disappear. He was sure that everyone was watching him, waiting for him to make another mistake. The other officers at the station still talked about the video, and Tom could feel their eyes on him whenever he walked through the building. He was convinced that Dorothy was punishing him by making him work so closely with her. "Today, we're visiting the Riverside Community Center," Dorothy announced one Tuesday morning as they sat in her office. "There's a program there for single mothers who need help with childcare while they attend job interviews." Tom nodded quietly and followed Dorothy to the police car. As they drove through the city, Dorothy talked about the different programs the center offered. She spoke about the families they helped as if she knew each one personally. When they arrived at the community center, Tom was amazed by what happened next. As soon as Dorothy walked through the front doors, she was surrounded by people giving her warm hugs and genuine smiles. Children ran up to her, calling her Chief Dorothy and showing her their artwork. Adults stopped what they were doing to talk with her. "How's little Michael doing with his reading?" Dorothy asked one woman. "Much better, thanks to the tutoring program you helped us start." The woman replied, "He's reading 3 books a week now." Dorothy remembered everyone's names. She asked about their children, their jobs, their health problems. She knew that Mrs. Patterson's husband had just found work after being unemployed for 6 months. She remembered that young Jamie had been worried about starting secondary school. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Officer Bradley," Dorothy said, putting her hand on Tom's shoulder. "He's going to be helping us with our new safety workshops for the community." Tom felt nervous as people looked at him. He was sure they had all seen the video of him being rude to Dorothy. But instead of cold stares, he saw curious and welcoming faces. Tom spent the morning helping set up chairs and tables for a job skills workshop. He found himself talking with some of the mothers who were attending. One woman named Lisa had 2 young children clinging to her legs while she tried to fill out job applications. "It's so hard to find work when you have little ones," Lisa explained to Tom. "Most employers don't want to hire someone who might need time off when the children get sick. But I have to work to pay the rent." Tom had never thought about how difficult it must be for a single parent to find jobs. He helped Lisa's children color pictures while she focused on her paperwork. "I never thought police officers cared about our struggles," Lisa admitted quietly. "But Chief Walker, she's different. She really listens to us. She doesn't just drive by in her car. She comes inside and talks to us like we're real people." As the weeks passed, Tom found himself looking forward to these community visits. Dorothy had him start a bicycle safety program for children, teaching them about wearing helmets and following traffic rules. He helped organize a neighborhood watch group where residents could work together to keep their streets safe. Dorothy never mentioned their first encounter or the traffic stop that had made him famous. She treated him with respect and kindness, always encouraging him to do better. But Tom could never forget how badly he had treated her that day. One evening, as they walked through the community center after a successful safety workshop, Dorothy spoke softly. "Tom, do you know why I became a police officer?" Tom shook his head. He had wondered about this many times, but had never asked. "When I was young, maybe 17 years old, I was angry about everything," Dorothy said, looking out at the children playing in the center's playground. "My father had died, and I was headed down the wrong path. I was getting into trouble, hanging round with the wrong people." She paused, watching a group of children playing football. "One day, an officer caught me and my friends doing something we shouldn't have been doing. Instead of arresting me, he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. He helped me find my way. He showed me that I could use my life to help others instead of hurting them." Tom felt tears beginning to form in his eyes. "Chief Walker, I need to say something. I'm sorry. I was wrong that day when I stopped you. I was wrong about everything." Dorothy turned to look at him and smiled gently. "Tom, you're not the same person who stopped me that day. Look at what you've accomplished here. Growth is a beautiful thing to watch." 6 months had passed since Tom Bradley first started working with Chief Dorothy Walker on community programs. Now, he stood in the same Riverside Community Center where he had felt so uncomfortable on his first visit. But everything was completely different. The center was packed with people from all over Manchester, families, police officers. Local business owners and city council members had all come to celebrate the annual Community Service Awards. Tom wore his best uniform and tried to stay calm, but his hands were shaking with nervousness. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dorothy said, standing at the front of the room with a microphone, "today we honor those who have made a real difference in our community. This year's Community Service Award goes to Officer Tom Bradley." The crowd erupted in applause. Tom walked to the front of the room, still hardly believing this was happening. Just 6 months ago, these same people had seen him on the news treating Dorothy badly. Now they were clapping for him. Officer Bradley has shown us that true strength comes from admitting our mistakes and working hard to make things right. Dorothy continued, looking at Tom with pride. He's become a bridge between our police department and this community. He's proven that people can change when they choose to grow. Tom looked out at the faces in the audience. Lisa was there with her two children, who were now healthy and happy. Lisa had found a good job at a local office and was doing well. The neighborhood watch group that Tom had helped organize was sitting together in the front row. Their work had helped reduce crime in the area by 40%. Mrs. Patterson was there too, the woman whose husband had been unemployed for so long. Her family was doing much better now. The bicycle safety program that Tom had created had taught over 200 children how to ride safely, and it had already prevented several accidents. I want to thank Chief Walker for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Tom said when it was his turn to speak 6 months ago, I was angry and lost. I treated people badly because I was hurting inside. But Chief Walker showed me that we can choose to be better. She taught me that being a police officer means serving people, not just enforcing rules. After the ceremony, Tom and Dorothy walked quietly through the community center's small garden. The evening air was cool, and children were playing on the playground nearby. Tom had something he needed to ask Dorothy, something that had been on his mind for months. Chief, I need to ask you something, Tom said, stopping beside a bench. Why did you give me a second chance after what I did to you that day? You could have fired me. You had every right to be angry with me. Dorothy stopped walking and turned to face him. Her kind eyes looked the same as they had on that cold afternoon when he had pulled her over. Tom, that day you stopped me. I could see that you were hurting, she said gently. Hurt people often hurt others. It's like a cycle that goes round and round. But I also saw something else in your eyes that day. I saw potential for goodness. She smiled. The same gentle smile that had stayed with Tom all these months. My husband, Robert, used to tell me a story about two wolves. Dorothy continued. He said that we all have two wolves living inside us. One wolf is made of anger, hatred, and bitterness. The other wolf is made of love, kindness, and compassion. The wolf that wins is the one we choose to feed every day. Tom felt tears in his eyes as he understood what she meant. You chose to feed the right wolf, he said quietly. And so did you, Tom. Dorothy replied. That's why you're here today. Tom nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding wash over him. Chief, I want to help train new police officers. I want to share my story with them. Maybe I can help prevent other officers from making the same mistakes I made. Dorothy's face lit up with excitement. I was hoping you'd say that, Tom. We're starting a new training program next month for young officers. I can't think of anyone better to lead it than someone who has learned these lessons the hard way. As they walked back toward the police station, Tom thought about his journey. The angry, bitter man who had written those traffic tickets was gone. In his place was someone who understood that real authority comes from serving others, not from having power over them. Dorothy had shown him that redemption was possible, that people could change, and that sometimes the greatest teachers come from the most unexpected places. Tom had learned that everyone deserves a second chance to become their best self.